She won 7 straight matches. Then this happened to Alex Eala. She had just won 7 matches in a row. She had just cracked the world's top 20 for the first time in her life. And then, in front of a stadium full of people who had flown in just to see her, Alex Eala lost the second set of a tennis match without winning a single game. 0. Nothing. A bagel in front of her own fans on the biggest stage of her career. But here's what almost nobody is talking about. In the days before that collapse, 2 of the most respected voices in tennis had already put their finger on the exact flaw that would end her run. And one of them had the receipts to prove it, down to the frame of video. So was Toronto really an exhaustion story? Or was something else hiding underneath a magical 2 weeks that nobody wanted to look at too closely? Stick around, because by the end of this video you'll understand exactly what broke down, exactly what the experts are saying needs to change, and exactly why this defeat might be the most important match of Alex Eala's career so far. If stories like this keep you hooked, hit subscribe now, because we're breaking down the rise, the fall, and the road back for the Philippines' biggest tennis star. Let's rewind, because to understand how far Alex Eala fell in Toronto, you first need to understand how impossibly high she had climbed. It started in Washington, D.C., at the Mubadala DC Open. Eala walked into that tournament as a talented but still unproven 21-year-old. She walked out of it as history. Along the way, she beat Olympic champion Zhang Qinwen, former U.S. Open finalist Leylah Fernandez, and former world number 1 Naomi Osaka, before running into top seed Jessica Pegula in the final. Pegula took the first set. Rain then suspended the match for almost a full day. When it resumed, Eala was a different player. She won the final 2 sets, and with them the last 9 games of the match, closing it out 6-love in the decider. Final score: 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. It was the first WTA Tour-level singles title ever won by a Filipino player, and it sent her rocketing toward a career-high ranking. Back home, the reaction was seismic. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. posted his congratulations within hours, calling it a moment that would inspire countless young Filipinos to dream without limits. Lawmakers filed formal resolutions in her honor. And Eala, with barely 48 hours to celebrate, packed her bags and flew straight to Toronto for the National Bank Open, one of the toughest, deepest draws in women's tennis. This is where the story gets dangerous, because most athletes would have taken that flight and crashed. Eala didn't. She kept winning. In round 2, she faced Alicia Parks, the American who shares the record for the fastest serve in WTA history and who had beaten Eala at the Australian Open earlier that year. This time, Eala got her revenge, grinding out a 6-1, 4-6, 6-2 win in front of a crowd so loudly pro-Eala that it barely felt like she was playing on foreign soil. Then came Katie McNally, fresh off upsetting a Grand Slam champion of her own. That match turned into a war. Eala took the first set, then rolled her ankle chasing down a forehand in the second, forcing a medical timeout while trainers taped her foot on court. She lost that set. Somehow, she found another gear in the third, closing it out 6-3, 5-7, 6-4 after 2 hours and 39 minutes on court. 7 straight wins. A new career-high ranking of world number 20, and a stadium that, by her own admission, felt like a home game 3,000 miles from home. And then, standing in her way was Belinda Bencic. If you wanted to design the single worst possible opponent for an exhausted, emotionally spent Alex Eala, you would probably design Belinda Bencic. This is a former world number 4, an Olympic gold medalist, the woman who won this exact tournament in Toronto as an 18-year-old back in 2015. And unlike the raucous, flag-waving crowd Eala had fed off all tournament, Bencic has built a career on doing the opposite, tuning noise out completely and playing with ice in her veins. The result was brutal. Bencic broke Eala's serve in the very first game she played on it. She broke it again and again. By the time it was over, the Swiss star had won 6-4, 6-0, converting 6 of her 10 breakpoint chances and taking 62% of the total points played. Eala's 7-match winning streak, the longest of her career, was over in an hour and 13 minutes. The crowd that had roared her name all week fell almost completely silent. Now here's the part of the story most reporting on this match completely skipped past. This collapse was not some sudden mystery. Two of the sharpest analytical minds in tennis had already flagged the exact weakness that just got exposed, and they'd flagged it weeks before Toronto even began. Go back to Wimbledon. Eala had just produced the win of her career, taking down defending champion Iga Swiatek in 3 sets to become the first Filipino player, man or woman, to ever reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam singles tournament. It was a magical run, one that even earned her a 2-word Instagram comment from her childhood idol, 5-time Grand Slam champion Maria Sharapova, who called her a star underneath Wimbledon's post celebrating the win. Eala has spoken for years about looking up to Sharapova, about meeting her idol at just 5 years old and still keeping the photo. That admiration is real, and it's mutual respect, not fiction. But it was a different legend who put the microscope on Eala's game that week, and what she saw should have been a warning sign for everything that followed in Toronto. After Eala's very next match, a loss to Jasmine Paolini, Tennis Hall of Famer Martina Navratilova sat down on Tennis Channel and did not hold back. She pointed out that Eala's first serve was sitting around 80 to 85 miles an hour, when she was physically capable of hitting well over 100. She called it, in her words, too much of a puffball. And crucially, as a left-hander, Navratilova noted Eala simply wasn't using her natural lefty slice enough to attack her opponent's backhands. She was serving into strengths instead of away from them. For a player who doesn't have overwhelming pace, that's not a small technical footnote. That's the difference between dictating a point and surviving one. Fast forward to the middle of the Toronto run, and a second, even more specific diagnosis landed. Rick Macci, the legendary coach who developed Serena and Venus Williams, and who has also worked directly with Maria Sharapova, broke down Eala's serve mechanics in forensic detail. Using frame-by-frame video analysis, Macci identified a timing flaw in her leg drive, the way her legs and racket coordinate right at the moment of contact. According to Macci, that flaw was causing her to lose acceleration and open up too early, robbing her of power before the ball even left her racket. His verdict was blunt. Fix that one mechanical issue, and he believed Eala had the raw tools to serve well over 100 miles an hour as a lefty, a genuine weapon instead of a liability. Put those two analyses together, and a pattern starts to emerge that has nothing to do with luck or a bad day. A serve that isn't generating enough power. A serve that isn't using her natural angles to attack. And an opponent in Bencic who is exceptionally good at exploiting exactly that kind of vulnerability, especially once fatigue creeps in and shot selection gets even more conservative. Because make no mistake, fatigue absolutely played its part too. By the time Eala walked onto the court against Bencic, she had played 7 matches in barely more than a week, across 2 different countries, on a rolled ankle that had needed medical attention just days earlier. Tennis at the elite level is unforgiving about workload. The margins between a puffball first serve and a genuine weapon shrink even further when your legs are running on fumes. Bencic, by contrast, arrived fresher, focused, and clinical, and she made Eala pay for every short ball and every predictable serve. So what happens now? This is where the story stops being a cautionary tale and starts being an opportunity. Alex Eala is 21 years old. In the space of a single season, she has beaten a former world number 1 at Wimbledon, beaten a top 3 player to win her first WTA title, and cracked the world's top 20 for the first time in her life. A loss like Toronto, as painful as it looked on the scoreboard, is exactly the kind of data point a young player needs. It doesn't just show the ceiling. It shows precisely where the next level of work has to happen. 2 of the most credible voices in the sport have already handed her the blueprint. Sharpen the slice, add real pace to the first serve, and stop giving dangerous returners like Bencic anything comfortable to attack. The schedule doesn't slow down to let her process any of this. Eala is already heading into the Cincinnati Open, another Masters-level event on the North American hardcourt swing, before the US Open begins in New York at the end of August, the final Grand Slam of the season, and the one where the whole tennis world will be watching to see whether Toronto was a wake-up call or just a blip. What's clear is this: the talent was never in question. The heart was never in question. You don't fight through a rolled ankle in a 2-hour 39-minute battle if you don't have that. What's in question now is whether a 21-year-old who has already rewritten Philippine tennis history can take a very public, very specific piece of criticism and turn it into the missing piece of her game. If she does, Toronto won't be remembered as the tournament where Alex Eala's run ended. It'll be remembered as the tournament where her real evolution began. We'll be tracking every step of that journey, from Cincinnati to New York and beyond. If you want to see how this story unfolds, subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.